It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Did you read this thing on smart TVs? Business Insider, Ben Gilbert. There's a simple reason your new smart TV was so affordable. It's collecting and selling your data. How many of you out there have smart televisions? I mean, I've got one, right? Actually, sometimes it doesn't work very good, but I do have one. Folks, I want you to welcome back to the program to talk about this Michael Daugherty. He's the director of the National Cybersecurity Society, board member at NetShield Corporation. And he's also the author of a book, The Devil Inside the Beltway, the shocking expose of the U.S. government surveillance and overreach into cybersecurity, medicine, and small business. Mr. Daugherty, welcome back, sir.
Well, good morning, sir. How are you?
I am doing good. Sir, can you just tell us a little bit about, this smart TV? I mean, what do you know about smart TV? Is it really collecting all of our data, and are they selling it? And where does the government come involved here?
Well, okay. Those two are two broad, great questions.
Oh yeah, loaded question.
When you put little chips into these things, it's not just be your TV, folks, be your washer and everything else. These companies are in really vicious, tight, low-profit, high-risk competitive markets, TVs especially. They look for any way possible to squeeze, as much juice out of the grapefruit as they can. Well, they do that by monetizing the data they collect on you once they start using their product. So they start learning how to drive cash flow after the point of sale. And so they want you to buy their product so they can make money off it later, so their price goes down up front so they can make a stream of cash later that ends up just data. Okay, and so the value of the data is how much they learn, they can sell to others to learn about how you buy, what you watch, what you're most likely to buy after. That's the type of analysis that is, people go, well, okay. The problem is that this data can be broadened, analyzed, packaged, labeled, and it might fall into the wrong hands. So this is the bigger picture is, what is the government doing about this? Well, not much, because they are so far behind. We have a culture in our federal government, especially, of no accountability. We have turned our government jobs into places you get to land and put tentacles down and they'll never get rid of you. And people that have jobs like that protect them viciously. And so when we have this technological, scientific issue of that we built this entire internet without enough security, and yet the people who are supposed to be protecting us have no accountability, so we have the wrong people with the protection. So we're in a quagmire. It's a tough situation, and it's happening so fast the American people aren't waking up fast enough.
Are there any smart TVs out there on the market that don't have the capability, or the companies that are not collecting and selling your data?
I don't know about every company that isn't. I know it's a degree. I don't know that I can't say that every manufacturer is not. I could say that every manufacturer can, but some are. Vizio does it aggressively. They're known as high quality and low price. They go very heavy through Costco. Again, they're not grabbing your name and watching you walk around the room. Okay, they're watching what you're watching and analyzing it and using areas of zip codes and income levels to take all that data in a bigger picture, what they have all over that certain geographical area, and do a sort of cross-analysis. And then have some target to marketing people that want to figure out other things for you to buy.
So I know this may be an irrelevant question, and I actually think the question itself is going to show my ignorance. But when does it happen? Is there obviously the smart TVs are connected to the internet the entire time? So is it constantly feeding the information, or is there a set time where?
Well, you have to use the smart TV factors. Like I'm an old dude. I don't have my TV hooked up to the internet. I'm 58. I work in cybersecurity and run these things, and I still go, click, click, click. So I don't have it all. So the way to protect yourself is to not, be using all this internet. I actually watch Netflix on my iPad. I don't watch it on my television. So, there's ways to protect yourself. It's not default automatic. You just not activate those features in the smartphone. It depends on the smart television. But the bigger picture is that it's just not your TV. It's not just going to be your TV. The big picture here is, wake up, folks. We are, at the speed of light, our privacy is being drained out our back door faster than we can know. And don't think the government has its act together to protect us. Because the government was built not to protect us about a century ago. This administrative state that's gone on that people talk about really are the bureaucrats. Congress doesn't really make these regulations anymore. They let the bureaucrats do it. And congressmen love that because then they don't have to be the bad guy. They just get to point to who someone else is the bad guy and throw their hands up and say, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't have enough power. And then they get to just raise money and run for office and have a really cushy job. And the bureaucrats get to run the show. And that is what we have to understand is they maybe were okay at it, and we didn't really notice a problem in the last century. But with medicine and technology, not really caring about those people and not being controllable, now we realize that we have a lot of incompetence that we can't get rid of in the government, and Congress is not anxious to get rid of it.
We're talking with Michael Daugherty from the National Cybersecurity Society. Michael, where does the government surveillance state come in terms of the incentive to be comfortable with what these private companies are doing? And actually, I'll reference back to the Snowden disclosures with the NSA and everything else. Some of those documents that he released where you had the government that was subverting these private corporations, really blurring the line, asking for the keys to new software so that they would have access if they needed it. Obviously, we have the NSA data center out in Utah that we're told, storing every communication, every text message, every phone call in case they needed it in some later date. Where does that come in? And is there an advantage in terms of, the violation of the Fourth Amendment, the government, there's some people in the government, maybe the deep state, that are totally okay with this and even want it and welcome this?
Well, that's right. Look, knowledge is power and data is power, and that's the danger of having all these back doors. And we used to be able to say, well, the NSA is going to have, a big pile, but they don't have time to go through all that. At some point, and this is the biggest concern that's to wake the American public up, at some point you have to rely on the government, and that's why the violation of trust that we're repeatedly seeing by these bureaucrats in all these agencies at the top is so concerning. The FBI is number one right now for what they're doing. When they turn around and decide to investigate a president because they don't like a decision that was going on, it is terrifying. These things have evidently long morphed into their own organisms long ago, independent, and that's scary because that's when politicized data gets used against you. Barack Obama did it. He had agencies turn over data to him that he had no reason to see, so he could analyze and use his political weaponization against certain areas that didn't have housing the way he wanted to have, for example. And so it ultimately the American public is going to have to wake up to it and be educated by it and demand it change. I don't see anything else happening otherwise because, we don't have a media that defends us. That does not exist, unfortunately, and that puts us in a real disadvantage.
Well, and I will also say, there's a lot of young people that don't have a problem with it. They love the instant gratification, the technology. And then if you ask them the question about privacy, they will say, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so I have nothing to worry about. Have you ever heard that mentality expressed by anybody?
Oh, sure, all the time, and that's a logical deduction when you don't understand the bigger picture. And when we don't have news organizations that explain the bigger picture, they don't get it. Why would they? Why would we get it? How can you, just because you use a computer doesn't mean you're a computer expert. Just because you fly on Delta doesn't mean that you can fly the plane. So, and we don't have a government that's protecting us or educating us on this. They're exploiting us. So, they'll learn and then they'll be outraged, and then I wouldn't surprise me if we had a much more, anti-government and more conservative political climate in 20 years, when people really learn the hard way that they're just being exploited by this. Because those young people, go ahead, watch the temper tantrum they have if you take away their phone. There's a huge sense of entitlement. That's all they've known. That's their freedom. You take that away, suddenly you'll have a bunch of pitchforks and lanterns strolling down the street.
Yeah,
so
that's a
it's an
good,
interesting dynamic.
yeah, very much so. We really appreciate it, Michael Daugherty. It's always great to have you on, and certainly enlightening, educating us about all of this stuff with technology. So we appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much.
Hey, have a good week. I appreciate it.
All righty, folks. He's the author of The Devil Inside the Beltway, the shocking expose of the U.S. government's surveillance and overreach into cybersecurity, medicine, and small business.